Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Steven Minsky. Steven is a CEO and founder at LogicManager, which is a powerful risk management software. We had our first interview with Steven in January, and it was about data privacy and how regulations like GDPR are changing the game for businesses. For those interested, please check out our episode in January either on our podcast or on our site at globalriskcommunity.com. Stephen, thank you for coming to our interview today.
Pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Stephen, can you tell us a little bit what LogicManager has been up to since we spoke in January, and what's something you or your team have recently achieved that you are really proud of?
Glad that you asked that. Some people during the pandemic have been learning how to bake sourdough bread or learn a new instrument. Here at LogicManager, we put out a relief package to all of our customers back in March of 2020. We gave free consulting and unlimited software usage licenses to our entire customer base to help them shift to the new normal. We collected then over this pandemic period 200 success stories from their using our software and services in new and innovative ways. And as is our strategy is to be thought leaders in our space, we took all of these success stories and put them into a new solution center that we launched as a resource for the world. This resource can be used by all risk managers everywhere without charge, for them to be able to look at these success stories of organizations that have made that transition to the new normal and can use this to socialize within their organization, to bring their constituencies, their risk partners, educate them on a risk-based approach, and use these success stories, like I said, without charge and without a connection to a commitment to anything, to educate their communities on what a risk-based approach can do in helping organizations transition to the new normal. Very proud of this body of work. It's a first for our industry.
All right, fantastic. So it's available on your site, or where is it available?
It's available on our site. It's under logicmanager.com/solutions, or going to the solutions page on our menu. And it's a searchable library of these risk-based, package success stories.
All right. Okay, so today we will do a deep dive into the ESG topic, which is in environment, social, I believe, and governance. So, Stephen, can you tell us why has ESG become more important than ever, and why should companies care about enabling a robust ESG strategy?
So this is something that's been building for a decade. And so, yes, at this moment in time, the awareness has never been higher, but we have to look at the trend over the past 10 years to understand the importance of this. ESG, we've seen under this pandemic, social changes and environment changes that have brought this awareness to a head of, everything from Black Lives Matter, that has actually swept the globe. It's not a US phenomena. It has gone to every country in the world. These are human and social issues that have arisen. The pressure, you could say, from the pandemic has accentuated these. The environment has never before been at this. It's been building for the past 10 years. But what's particular about ESG is that it's become and again, world peace is something that as a society we've always aspired to, but ESG, environment, social, and governance, has now become a financial mandate. And so there's trillions now of dollars, investment dollars, that are used for social causes. We call this the see-through economy, where the iPhone and other smartphones, now everybody's got a video reporter in their hand, and that within hours, stories move across the globe, that this see-through economy is like a fire. It can heat your house, it can cook your food, or it can burn it down. And social and environmental and governance issues are the same. It can attract investors to your organization, private or public, that makes your value increase exponentially, or it can uncover weaknesses in your organization that investors and your regulators and customers will cause them to flee away from your organization. So again, this ESG is a new fire. Not to be afraid of it. It's an opportunity as well as a threat, and as well as now a regulatory requirement. So this is the newest development of the see-through economy.
All right. So what are the biggest challenges organizations are facing when it comes to ESG, and how they should proactively address any issues or gaps into their compliance related to this issue, perhaps about implementation, or what other steps are important to?
Yeah, I've been working, our teams have been working with our customers, and what we see is the number one problem when this comes up as ESG is identifying their stakeholders. Some people make the mistake to say, oh, it's all about the environment or it's all about social, and they dive into one aspect of it. What they need to do is take a step back and say, who are my stakeholders? What industry am I in? And what is my relationship to my stakeholders within my industry? So if you're a cancer research facility, you've got to be looking at donors is your lifeline. And you've got to be thinking, what do your donors believe? And it's not even about cancer per se, it's about connecting to your donors and the interests of your donors. And then you've got to be taking the interests of your donors and then looking at, okay, certainly what are the environmental, social, and governance aspects of cancer research that is going to play, that is going to be favorable to that constituency, but also it has a dollar return to it. Donors want to see measures in terms of outcomes of cancer treatments. So environment has an impact on certain cancer treatments, as well as governance, as well as social. And then you'd say, okay, that's very nice I'm not a cancer research facility. Let's look at a bank. Banks have investors and investments, and they need to be looking at who are my stakeholders again? And they're looking at their investors like BlackRock and others like this. And then they need to be thinking, okay, what is their interests and how does this play out for their particular organization? They need to look at where are their bank branches? Are they in underserved communities? Their lending portfolio, are they capturing information about usage of funds for solar or for other environmental or social aspects? And they may be doing a lot of these things and they just haven't tagged that information. So a generalized assessment needs to go out first. So step one, figure out who your stakeholders. And again, if you're consumer goods, your stakeholders might not, it's investors, but it's also your customers. What are your customers? What's your brand stand for? And again, these are opportunities as well as threats. Giving you an example of consumer packaged goods. There was Pepsi did a social commercial about a year ago. It was a disaster. It was a bad execution on a very, very good idea. And Nike at the same time hired this controversial football player, and that was a great accelerant to their business. They understood their stakeholder and they did their execution according to their stakeholder, and Nike ended up selling a lot more sneakers. And Pepsi ended up losing a lot of customers to Coke, who were boycotting their particular execution. It was the same strategy, same stakeholders, but two very different executions. And I think that's what ESG is all about, is execution and value. And I think people get emotional about it, and that is the see-through economy, is the emotional component, but they need to look at the business component of what are the facts, where's the, and how can you justify and quantify and use this, this force for good for your organization and good for your community.
So your company recently launched a solution package around the ESG. So does it concentrate on a specific industry, or is it agnostic about the on industry? What is your solution about?
So I've given you 2 or 3 examples, And what we saw is that the need in the marketplace that people are struggling with is they were tired of hearing the words, it depends. And they would go to their consultants or they would go to their committees, and the answers would always be around ESG is it depends. So we came up with a solution package that would be a process, that would be a definitive right way to go through a process that would produce reliable results in a predictable period of time. And we use our risk maturity model, which provides the evidence, because the other need that we saw in the marketplace is in March of this year, just a couple of months ago, the SEC passed new enforcement actions that says making a disclosure about ESG because of the investor interest and because of the financial outcomes that ESG is tied to, that making a misstatement in your ESG capabilities or your ESG strengths or an underplaying of your ESG weaknesses is equivalent to making a financial misstatement of misstating how much cash you have in the bank or the strength of your assets. And that they're holding the penalty now of that disclosure misstatement to the same level as Sarbanes-Oxley misstatements, saying that it doesn't matter if it's fraudulent or that it's negligence, the penalty is the same. And so now they're forcing organizations, public and private, to provide evidence of their ESG capability and statement. So any disclosure that's made, formally or informally, because it has a financial ramification that investors are relying upon, that there are the same penalties and the same scrutiny that comes along with it. This is now spread to all of the regulatory agencies that have adopted, as it is with Sarbanes-Oxley. It then goes to trade associations, it goes then to state organizations, and it's gone to Europe and Asia as well, with similar kinds of scrutiny and penalty for misstating ESG capabilities. Because investors and customers, this is with the see-through economy, it's such a hot issue. They don't want the cause of this in the see-through economy is the people speaking up saying, I don't want false statements about the good that you're doing if you're not really doing it. Or if you have a vulnerability, if you're an oil company and you have a vulnerability, what are you doing to address that vulnerability? And stating that vulnerability in plain language, and then issuing forth a plan for that vulnerability. An absence of disclosing the vulnerability is in itself a misstatement. And so this package drives through not only the process of coming up with the ESG disclosures, but this pack in a industry agnostic, methodical way, but it also in the process helps folks collect the evidence that they need to go back and support those disclosures in a safe and effective and efficient manner, so that expecting this scrutiny, how will they defend themselves so that they'll avoid penalties or scandal for their organizations. And so I think this is the comfort, like Sarbanes-Oxley is really just a simple attestation. My financials are accurate. The same is true now with an attestation for ESG. Are my ESG disclosures accurate and supportable and defensible? This is really what this package is getting at the heart of, because it is now a financial matter.
Okay. So how does the ESG relate to ERM? How does it ERM support ESG, or how a company measure by maturity to their ESG capabilities? Is it related to ERM, or how is it?
Yes, so this is the cutting edge of what LogicManager is working on. Where with the universities, we have active partnerships with the universities. Our first active partnership on ERM and proving the materiality of ERM's value was with Queen's University in Europe. And Queen's University was able to do a deep analytical review using our customer base and third-party, publicly available data to prove a correlation that those that had higher ERM maturities have a up to 25% market valuation premium over taking size and industry and region into account, is that the only explanation for this 25% premium to the valuation of the business in terms of their stock price is due to ERM. Was a breakthrough research in 2015. It had never been touched before and really showed corporate responsibility and the financial benefits of corporate responsibility. ESG, from what I've just described, is now a financial mechanism as well. And we're doing the research now that proves ESG is a subset of ERM. The G of governance is ERM, and environment and social are just two vectors out of all the vectors in your business that you need to be discerning your opportunities and your risks and your regulatory. So in this framework of the RMM, the risk maturity model, it's always measured three things: opportunity, regulatory readiness, and risk to be defended on. And this risk maturity model talks about your capability, and it doesn't just talk, it actually proves in a material way your competency and your maturity and be able to manage on these three vectors. And ESG is a subset of these three vectors, because as we talked about with ESG, there is a risk threat component, there is a regulatory component, and there is a opportunity performance component. And ERM is the proven methodology to be able to provide that regulatory framework back. So we've taken the data from the risk maturity model, and we're working now adding universities to this consortium and making this data, again, a rising tide floats all boats. Yes, we are a software company, that's true. But as we believe in being part of the risk management community and giving to that risk management community. And this primary research is something that our partners and our organization will be publishing over the year ahead to provide this evidence. But the efficacy, if you will, to put it in vaccination terms, has already been that groundwork has already been done, and now it's taking that information and turning it into a publication. So the short of it is the risk maturity model providing that evidence, the regulatory evidence, the peer review scrutiny evidence on the methodology behind ESG to be able to use the risk maturity model approach to provide that evidence to your regulators, to your boards, to your committees, and to your investors.
Okay, fantastic. So you recently published a specific your prediction for 2021, 2024 surrounding regulatory changes, cybersecurity threats, monetary inflation, debt crisis. Could you perhaps, in a few words, describe your vision for this predictions?
So, to talk about a prediction, it's interesting to actually look at the data patterns. My predictions are based on patterns. This is risk management. It's not that we use astrology or that we have other methods of knowing the future. We believe risk management is about identifying trends and patterns early, and then imagining the unimaginable, and then preparing for those desirable and undesirable outcomes, so that based on impact, likelihood, and effectiveness of our preparedness for these scenarios, we will be able to, if it's an opportunity, seize upon that opportunity, or if it's a regulatory matter, if we find ourselves with scrutiny, that we have our I's and T's crossed, and the same thing with risks, that we're defensible against these risks. So as context, let's go back to the recession of 2008. When this recession occurred, there was massive shift in the risk management world. Sarbanes-Oxley came out of that, Dodd-Frank the largest financial regulations in addition to Sarbanes-Oxley came out of this. The risk-based approach for Sarbanes-Oxley came out of it. That was a shift. The Dodd-Frank legislation came out of this. So much more scrutiny because the recession stressed society and stressed all of the areas of risk across organizations. And like a flare gun that shoots up in the night, showed all the objects on the ground where the risk was now transparent. The pandemic has done the same this time. So the pandemic is the red flare that's gone up to light up the night sky. And now you can see for the next 5 years clearly what those risks on the grounds are, what those opportunities on the grounds are, and regulatory actions lag those risks and opportunities because of the see-through economy. The population stands up to say, I don't want to go to a restaurant and get sick, protect me. I don't want to invest in a company that has fraud, protect me. I don't want to, I want to trust, I want to regain trust. And so the pandemic has put a serious hole around the world and their trust in institutions. And so what I'm seeing for the next 5 years across the board, take your industry, take your organization, take your regulatory authorities, your stakeholders, and there will be reputation and trust changes, particularly around enforcement actions from a regulatory perspective, and show me evidence from your institutions to restore that trust. Investors in good times, they just invest because it's good times. When they've had a stress situation where they've lost money, as many organizations closed and ran into bankruptcies, and we're coming out of the pandemic with a vaccine, that's wonderful, but we're not out of the woods yet, and we'll see further bankruptcies into the future. The investment community is nervous, and they're going to want to see evidence. The regulatory authorities are going to want to see evidence. And the social organizations and environmental organizations, you've got to show evidence. A good example of this is Exxon. They are a global organization, as you know. A shot across the bow for all public organizations was about 2 weeks or so ago now at their board meeting to elect a slate of new directors. Exxon had always gotten its way, and most organizations have gotten their way on their board slate for elections. In this particular case, as a unprecedented evidence of the power of this see-through economy, 2 board members were ousted and replaced by a activist organization that put forth a slate based on ESG. And so Exxon found itself where its preferred directors were not hired. What does it happen when you have a new board of directors? It means that you have a new boss. And so Exxon found that they had a new boss. And this comes back again to this power of ESG and the see-through economy, is they said that Exxon wasn't doing enough to change its business model to be prepared for clean energy, and that they weren't investing enough in diversifying from fossil fuels. And so they replaced board members to drive the organization to invest more in clean energy and to ensure the dividends and performance of the stock into the next 5 years. That's just one outcome example. I see this going across organizations of finding boards of directors being traded out by activists. And what was particularly interesting about this is the activists had only a 0.02% ownership of Exxon. Mm-hmm. But what they were able to do is rally all the stakeholders of the traditional investors to agree on this platform. So when you look at whether it be Bitcoin and investments in Bitcoin, or whether you be looking at, across the board, every industry has its interesting points. Even Amazon's new sidewalk technology. There's right ways and wrong ways of going to market when you think about the see-through economy. And if you don't take the see-through economy risk-based approach in ruling out anything from lack of action or proactive new technologies, as in the case of Amazon, you're going to find a tremendous backlash that has unnecessary market and economic harm. And that is a theme that I can answer pretty much. You tell me an industry and a company, and I'll show you how the see-through economy and these three vectors are going to change the future for that particular industry and that particular company. This is the pattern data that we've published into our packages. But I think, this is my personal hobby and expertise as well. So anytime you want to play this, what's going to happen over the next 5 years game, be delighted to answer any questions and be your oracle on.
Yeah, sure. All right, Steven, thank you very much. I wish you great success with your future plans, and I hope that our members will find this interview very useful, and hope to work with you on other initiatives so we can probably introduce some new stuff to our community. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think this is really important, what you said about introducing new things. Because of this, people talk about the new normal. I think, we were talking just a bit right before we got started about the importance of certifications and professional risk management designations that need to be updated to give new skills to folks in the risk management community to manage in the new normal environment. We can't expect to go into a new normal without training our staffs, giving them new certifications and designations with a risk-based approach. So very exciting conversation that we had, and looking forward to having more conversations on the kinds of skills that risk community members might be able to invest in their own careers and in their own capabilities for their own career success in the next 5 years as well.
All right, fantastic, Steven. Thank you. Bye-bye.